All team, give it everything you got.
It's time to fangirl flail with Fangirls Going Rogue.
Count me in.
I don't think there's anything more important in the Star Wars universe than the fans.
News, discussion, and commentary from the female point of view.
You call this a diplomatic solution?
No, I call it aggressive negotiations.
With your hosts, Teresa Delgado, Tricia Barr, and Sarah Woloski.
Boy, am I glad to hear your voice.
Strap in, because this is where the fun begins.
I like the sound of that.
It is an all-new era for Fangirls Going Rogue, and we are so happy to be here live for all of you that are with us. For those of you that are listening later, this is episode 27 of Fangirls Going Rogue. I'm your host, Teresa Delgado, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts, Tricia Barr.
Hi, I'm still shaken from hearing that new opening. It was awesome. Wow.
Yeah, and we have to give a lot of props to Sarah Woloski for designing that. She worked long and hard on it, went through several different versions of it, and we actually just finalized it today as of recording on December 28th. So, Sarah, good job.
Oh, thank you guys. And thanks for all your input, because a lot of that was things that you guys had wanted or found, and I wanted to make sure we got a little slice of everyone's fandom in there.
So for those of you that are longtime listeners, this is our second episode in December, which is awesome. We've never done this before. But not only that, but it's our first show for our new era of Star Wars. The Force has awakened within us. And to help us do all of this, our good friend Steve Glosson over at the Gulliver's has graciously provided all of his talent with live Mixel Pixel stuff, as I call it. Hey, Steve, how are you?
How's it going, guys? Good to be here and glad to help out however I can. So, hi. I'm just going to sit in the background and watch levels and try to keep things rolling.
Sounds good. And joining us, because we couldn't talk The Force Awakens without him, is Richard Woloski, Sarah's awesome husband. How are you, Richard?
I am doing very great, thank you. And I love that intro, Sarah's awesome husband. Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate that.
Sounds good. So for those of you who don't know what's going on with our show, basically we are on our own now. You can find us in a lot of places, but most importantly is fangirlsgoingrogue.com. We have a brand new website. We're still kind of designing it and stuff, but you can get all of our episodes there. We have a new iTunes feed where you can find just our shows. And Tricia and Sarah have been working really hard to get some of our old content uploaded on there. And we should be on your favorite iTunes feed thing or podcatcher. And if we're not, please send us an email to contact@fangirlsgoingrogue.com so that we can get that fixed for you. I know Sarah's been working on some of the newer podcatcher stuff lately. How's all that going, Sarah?
That's going good, and it really helps when people send in their emails. Hey, I don't see you on whatever, Smash Mouth or whatever the latest new podcatcher is.
My favorite 90s band of all time.
I once told me the world is gonna roll me.
So, and one of the things that's new about the show is that we get to do stuff like this. We can have live shows from time to time. We have a more open recording schedule, so we're going to be able to do more episodes for you guys, and we have a lot more flexibility, and we're really, really excited about that. We have new emails, so make sure you listen until the end of the show, because we're going to give all of that new contact information, and we need to go ahead and thank right now everybody who sent us an email, called in and left us a voicemail. We have several of those, but we've gotten so much positive feedback about our new direction that we're taking. And so thank you to all of you, all of our awesome listeners. And those of you who've already gone on iTunes and rated and reviewed us, awesome. We are sitting at, I think, 35 ratings and reviews in the US right now, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so, but we need more. We need more, because the more we have, the more visible we are, and the more prominent the show will be when people look for us. So we can only get there with your help. So keep it up. And then, of course, we need to say thanks to Sandra Shute. She is the one who keeps all of our discussions going on social media. from Instagram to Twitter to Facebook. And she just recently posted an awesome question about Star Wars books. And we've gotten a lot of interaction from the current authors in the Star Wars universe right now. And it's been amazing. So thank you, Sandra, for all of your hard work. We couldn't do any of that without you. And then some of you may have heard a familiar voice in that intro. I'm guessing some people will be able to guess who it was, but we're going to go ahead and say now thank you to a good friend of the show, Vanessa Marshall. She provided the voiceover work for that new intro, and she worked really long and hard on it and went through several drafts of it, and I listened to probably around 10 or 15 different versions of that. And so we want to thank her for taking time out of her busy schedule because right now she's super, super swamped with stuff. So thank you, Vanessa, for all your awesome work.
Yay. I listened to the first drafts walking down Disneyland's Main Street.
Ooh.
That was not easy. On my phone, when Teresa sent them on to us, I'm like trying to listen. I'm like, okay, all you people, be quiet. Trying to listen.
Everybody in Disneyland.
Stop Disneyland, turn down that music.
Exactly. I'm like, wait, everybody stop.
Well, Tricia, we have some stuff to give away, don't we?
We do have a giveaway. For our last show, we asked people to send an email to our new email, contact@fangirlsgoingrogue.com. And a lot of people sent in asking for these Verizon Cardboard 3D virtual reality viewers. And so we have several of them and decided to split it up. Some people are going to be rewarded for being fast on the draw and listening to the show early. And then other people, we didn't want to not let everybody have a chance. So the first two emails they won, and that's Miguel Espinoza and also Darth Paul. Paul, I don't know your last name, but I know you're Darth Paul, and I will send you an email, both of you, tonight. And then I had several more emails, so I asked Teresa and Sarah to pick a number, and that corresponded to the winners. And we had Bianca Horkin. She's the number Teresa drew. And we also had Jeffrey Clark. And I had to read his email that when he said he wanted the Verizon glasses, he said, I recently introduced my daughter, 7, Winter, to the movies. And I started thinking, his daughter's name is Winter. And he answers the question that came up in my head. He says, yes, I convinced my wife to name her playing the season card, and after the ink was dried on the certificate, I revealed my true intention. So yes, she is named after a Star Wars Expanded Universe character, Winter. Thank you. That is so awesome.
That's awesome.
So anyway, congratulations to all our winners, and that's Jeffrey Clark was our last one.
Awesome. Yeah, he's at R2Dad2 on Twitter and Instagram, and he communicates with us regularly, and he's a great guy. So what are we talking about on this particular episode? Why would we have 2 in December? Well, something happened this month. Something we've been waiting for like, I don't know, 3 years maybe? Long time.
30-some years.
30-something years. We're going to be talking about Star Wars The Force Awakens. So I just want to let everybody listening to the show recorded, and then everybody who's live now in the chat, all amazing 32 of you, if you have not seen Star Wars The Force Awakens, number 1, why? Number 2, if you haven't seen it, you need to leave now because we will be spoiling everything out of this. We're going to be talking about all the things we like, things we're critical of, some of those more emotional moments for ourselves. And everybody in here has seen it at least once. I think, Steve, you're on 4, correct?
I just saw it for the 4th time tonight.
Okay, and Tricia, you're on
5, seeing it 6 tomorrow.
Okay, Richard and Sarah?
We're on
35 times.
4.
Take that, Tricia.
We're a major contributing factor to that $1 billion.
Right. I'm on 3, possibly 4 tonight, and then possibly 5 by the end of the week. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you all now. I will see it at least 10 times in the theater before it leaves. So
I plan on seeing it every day this week.
Okay,
Wow.
well, fine.
Well, actually, Sarah and I have our big Skywalking Through Neverland meetup on the 30th, which is Wednesday. That will be our 5th time.
Yeah.
So any Skywalkers listening who are in the Southern California area, meet us at Downtown Disney this Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Nice plug. Good
There
job.
you go.
Before we get started talking film, Sarah had mentioned, well, we should talk about box office numbers. What I don't think she realized is the sleeping giant that she woke up inside of me. Because as Steve knows, I am obsessed with box office numbers. And
Yes,
sometimes...
all you have to do is listen to Disney Vault Talk.
But yeah, I'm obsessed with box office numbers. And for me, there are 3 big numbers when it comes to movies and what they need to beat in the box office. Number 1, it's their opening weekend. That is one of the biggest ones for me. And then after that, it's going to be domestic total gross and then worldwide total gross and then domestic total gross adjusted for inflation. That's what we need to look at to see how good this movie is doing. So number 1, for its domestic opening weekend, it beat the record which Jurassic World hit. Jurassic World held it at $208.8 million, and The Force Awakens came in and took that with $247 million.
Woohoo! So Kylo Ren went in with his lightsaber and chopped off the legs of the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
He made them more extinct than they already were.
But see, the T-Rex sort of saved everybody. It was
That's
that
true.
other thing.
It was the other one. What was the
That
other one called?
weird-
Indominus Rex.
Ah,
There we go.
Indominus Rex.
The Spielbergosaurus.
I know Kathleen Kennedy said that, Frank Marshall, her husband, was producer on Jurassic World, that he was in his bedroom, like, rooting at the numbers. And I can only imagine the friendly rivalry of, well, honey, good job.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. Wow.
So domestic total gross, obviously, we're not going to know that until the run of the film is completely done and over with. But currently, as of Monday, it was sitting at $544.6 million. For it to beat the number 1 film, which is currently Avatar, and we're talking not adjusted for inflation. That is a whole nother ballgame if we go there. So we're just looking at not adjusted for inflation. It needs to gross over $761 million. So we are not that far away. And the way that things have been rolling, I see us beating that very soon. It has beat the highest grossing Star Wars film, not adjusted for inflation, okay, which was Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and it had to be $475 million to do that, and it did that with this past weekend's numbers added in. But it is the first film, or it's the number 1 film, as far as hitting the $1 billion mark the fastest, and it did that in 12 days. It beat Jurassic Park's previous record, or Jurassic World, I'm sorry, by 1 day. Jurassic World did it in 13 days. The Force Awakens is not opened in China yet. It opens in China on January 9th. As soon as that happens, I'm sorry. Bye-bye, Avatar. Have a nice life.
Yeah.
It's been fun holding your records, goodbye. Now, it has broken a ton of other records, and I'm not going to go into all of them. But the funniest one to me is that it has broken the record for breaking the most records.
And there you go.
It has now broken 37 records in the film industry. Avatar is number 2 with breaking 9.
Wow.
So it's just kicking financial butt. And I'm excited.
Movies with female leads don't make money.
No, they don't. They don't make money and nobody wants their toys. That's awesome. And I love the fact that we can talk about these numbers like that and compare it to things like that, Tricia, that it's got a female lead and look at what it's doing in the box office. So, yeah, girls win.
Girls win.
Well, so that people can understand how we sort of saw this thing, let's talk about first viewing. So, Steve, let's talk about what we did. You drove all the way from Georgia.
That's right.
And you came down with the kids, as we affectionately call them, or Ryan. Wow, Riley. I was starting to say Bethany and Riley at the same time. With Bethany and Riley from the Star Wars Report. Well, okay, so I actually saw it first at a press screening, and I didn't really tell anybody. I told Steve, but I didn't tell Riley and Bethany. So when they found out, they were kind of upset.
I took your telling me as asking permission.
Yeah. So they messaged me and said, "What did you do?" So we actually went and saw it at the Alamo Draft House on South Lamar, which is like the Alamo Draft House. And we hung out for several hours in the highball next to the draft house. We got to see a marching band play Star Wars music.
They weren't a marching band.
Well, they were they were like old. They were like, sorry, Sarah, band nerds that wanted to stay band nerds and dressed up in Star Wars outfits. Like they, are all friends from high school that stayed friends and were like, let's start a Star Wars band.
They were wearing intentionally bad.
Yeah, like really bad Star Wars costumes
on purpose. And so they had the dude had his tuba, the bell of his tuba wrapped with some rope lights, and the trombone player had the rope lights all around the trombone and everything, and they were just having a good old time, and that was fun and cool. But what was really cool is they were playing on this big screen behind them old Kenner Star Wars toys commercials. And
yeah, that was pretty neat. And Steve's like, got that. Got that. Got that.
That was his kryptonite.
That's right.
Well, and then they played the original trailers for all 6 films. And Steve leans over to my mom and he's like, these are the original trailers.
Yeah,
from the movies.
Well, they played all 7. They played the trailers for all 7 films.
It was pretty cool to watch them all back to back, just because it's like you're traveling through time, just watching the technology. So then we go into the theater and we sit down, and Steve suddenly becomes this like super quiet individual. Like he's just not talking to anybody. He's just like, okay, this is getting ready to start. And then I was going to explain to him how to order at the Alamo Draft House, and he's like, she already told us. I'm like, okay then. Never mind. It was pretty funny.
Well, the one they make sure you know how to do, 2 things they make sure at Alamo Draft House is A, you know how to order your food, and B, you know not to talk.
Yeah, you know to shut up.
Was there special food?
There was some special food. There was Nerf nuggets or something, and like some sort of Jabba's pizza and some specialty, cocktail drinks and things like that. But they really like warned you this time about not talking, like really heavy. And Sarah, I know you've been there before, but they actually had somebody come out in costume and a gonk droid telling us to not talk. So our theater was very subdued because I think everybody was afraid if they cheered, they'd get kicked out.
Oh no.
So it was really quiet, which sort of bummed me out. And then we watched the movie and it was really fun. And then afterwards, Steve didn't talk to anybody.
That's true.
He didn't.
I came out of the film with very mixed emotions and really trying to process exactly how I felt about everything, because my fear was as the credits were rolling, my fear was I don't know that I like this movie. And that bothered me on a very, like, my whole identity was rocked. And so I'm just like, guys, I got to process it. You guys talk about it all you want. I really need to process this. And so for the next 3 days, when people would ask me, or really for the next 24 hours, when people ask me, what'd you think? I would say, I'm glad everyone likes it. I'm glad everyone likes it.
His response to me, I said, Steve, did you like it? And he goes, Teresa, did you like it? And I'm like, I loved it. And he's like, yay.
Because I don't want to rain on anyone's parade. That was my big thing. It's like, if I don't like this thing, I don't want to bring anyone else's enjoyment of it down. And so I've got to really process this whole situation. And what's really funny about that is by the time we got back to Teresa's mother's house where we were staying, myself and the kids, they were trying to drag stuff out of me. And so finally I said, all right, well, here's the thing. And I listed off a few things. And so they began to come back over the net with a few ideas. And then one of the kids, I forget who it was, kind of complained a little bit, not complained, but was a little bit critical of
Riles
of Kylo Ren. And I immediately went into defense mode. I immediately began to take up for that character, to take up for that story arc. And I'm like, okay, I like this movie, but my issues are on a different level than the story and the character. So, it was a fun time. It was a fun evening. It was a great experience. I want to go to Austin on a yearly basis just to hang out with Teresa and Greg and Teresa's mom, Miss Lori. And, because it was that good of a time.
Yeah, and Steve, you came out of the second viewing that we had a lot more positive, and you were actually laughing and stuff like that. So I think you're at a better place now.
Yes.
than you were.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, on the 17th. So Richard and Sarah, y'all's story is just amazing.
Oh, yeah. Where do we start? So we were in line for the Chinese theater screening on December 17th, which was it was a line for charity, and you just had to do your 24 hours of time. Well, through that line, we actually got the opportunity to go view the red carpet of the actual world premiere in Hollywood. And it was the biggest world premiere. They had this tent that they had started setting up a week earlier. So initially, we got a call on Saturday night, the 12th, saying, hey, they need, they're saving spots for 100 of us line members to go view the red carpet. There's going to be bleachers. You're going to be taken care of, and it will be, but you have to arrive at 6 a.m. on Monday morning. And we're like, oh, well, why 6 a.m.? Because the thing started at
7 p.m.
7 p.m. But we said, you know what? This is, we're here. This is the moment. We're going to kick ourselves if we don't do this.
We pretty much just wanted to soak in everything that had to do with The Force Awakens and the build up to the big premiere on the 17th.
Yeah. So we get there at 6 a.m. and of course they don't escort us over until 7:30. And when we're sitting there, we don't get escorted over to the bleachers. We get escorted to this tiny little sidewalk space that's all kind of
corral.
Yeah, this corral. And it for LA, I know it's LA, but it was freezing and we were not prepared for this weather and the gusty, icy winds. So we're sitting there and we're like, is this where we really want to view the red carpet? Should we stay? We were having serious doubts about staying. And then,
especially when they started setting up these big camera booms in front of us.
Yeah, yeah. But then it was about 1 p.m. and I know I was texting with you two, that we got the news from Disney that we were actually, we had these wristbands that we had gone through security to get. And with these wristbands, that was going to entitle us to actually see the movie that night, plus go to the red carpet after party with all the stars. So then it immediately became worth it to stay. To stick around.
And all of a sudden, didn't matter how cold it was, how grumpy we were, or how hungry we were just so happy.
Yeah.
And luckily, we had our recorder going at the same time that we got the news, so we got to hear the instant reaction from everyone when we got the word that we were going to go see The Force Awakens in just a mere matter of hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was such a delirious day. Then the red carpet arrivals started coming and you got to see glimpses of, everyone coming. Gwendolyn Christie towered above the crowd, so we could definitely see her. We saw BB-8 rolling down the red carpet. He was so cute.
Anthony Daniels came over to shake everyone's hand, say hello. He was in a good mood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was super
Mark Hamill
fun.
gave us all a big wave.
That's right. Yeah, he did. You can hear the full some of the stuff that we recorded on our show, our episode 104. What we ended up doing was, that whole day we were waiting 12 hours outside, and then finally, right at 6:45, we were escorted through this tent that we had been looking at.
The movie's going to start in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
If you want to go see it, go now. 15. Wait a minute. We got to unfreeze our feet from the sidewalk. We grabbed our lanyards and we ran. And then we had to check in our phones, our IDs.
So we took quick pictures of our lanyards, oh my gosh, and then
they weren't trusting anything.
No, and we got our seats, which we ended up seeing it in the the TCL Chinese Theater, and it was really exciting. And we sat down, and even at that point, even after waiting 12 hours, we still, I don't think, realized that we were actually going to see the movie in a matter of minutes. It wasn't, I think it wasn't until the Lucasfilm logo actually came on screen that, and then everything snapped and we started screaming.
It's been 2 weeks now and I still haven't realized it yet.
Yeah. So it was really cool. And we saw the movie and everything happened. And it's hard to take in that first time, especially when your mind is blank from what has just happened. And then we ended up at the after party afterwards, and about 10 minutes after we got into that big giant tent, we saw J.J. Abrams. And so we made our way up to him and, got to at least speak to him. And what did you say to him, Richard?
I said, excuse me, where's the support group? Which he seemed to get a good kick out of because he knew exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So that marks the 4th time I got to make J.J. Abrams laugh.
Oh,
yeah,
number 4?
Yeah, that's on my resume. That's the only thing on my resume.
Oh, that's awesome.
So he was very appreciative that everyone had such a great time at the movie. He had such strong reactions.
Yeah, it was a super fun experience. And once again, episode 104 of Skywalking Through Neverland actually has some tidbits and audio from the event from that day.
As it happened.
Yeah.
They gave
Awesome.
you your phones back after for the party.
Yes, we had them back for the party.
You got your phone back?
Yes, remember we took the selfie with J.J. Abrams.
They gave me back a beeper. This is not what I handed in.
This is why you're it's not working.
Yeah, we get these beeps every once in a while. It's like, what is that noise?
Tricia, what about you?
Tricia, I'm not gonna. There was nothing exciting for my first experience because it was a screening. I was the first person there because I had to go to Orlando, and it was interesting because you walk in and there was 4 dudes in suits, and one of them took the phone, and he was a really big guy, and then there was a bigger guy who asked if I had anything else electronic, and I'm like, no, but you can search my purse. And he goes, that's what he does. So that was the next guy who had to look in my purse, and then there was another guy who waved the wand, and then I went in and sat down, and there were other, it ended up being people in there, but nobody. It was weird because nobody reacted, so that was very strange. But then at the end, as all this is going on, I had been asked to write for Star Wars articles for Pop Sugar, which is it's a big women's culture site and so it's like, I want to bring Star Wars to new people. Yes. So I'm sitting there absorbing the experience. And at the end of it, the gentleman next to me just leans over. He's like, are you okay? And I wrote about this on Pop Sugar. And he was asking if I was okay. But I think he was the one who wasn't okay because he didn't see what was coming in the movie. And I sort of knew what was coming in the movie. And so it was an interesting conversation because he's like, I just did not see that. I don't know how to feel. So, Steve, maybe your reaction was genuine in that a lot of people experienced that sort of, I don't know how to feel about this movie. So when you were telling that story, it felt very, I heard that from a lot of people as they walked out. And I definitely have to say the movie gets better with each viewing. So that's my story, and I talked a little bit more about it on Hyperspace Pod. So Hyperspace Theories, if you guys want to listen to that too. So there's my plug for that show.
That was a very good episode too.
Thank you. But what I'm excited for is because Sarah, Teresa, and I have essentially been doing our business of talking about Fangirls Going Rogue, and so we don't get to talk so much about the movie. So this is really our first chance to talk about the movie and get down into it and how we felt about things. So, because I think there was some early text, and I'm like, I'm still absorbing, processing.
Yeah, and then I couldn't talk that whole week that we saw the movie.
I was so frustrated because Tricia was still processing and Sarah had no voice and Steve was all depressed. And I'm like, I have no one to talk to. And I was like, it was like me with my head in the wall in the corner going, help, help, help.
Well, now we can talk about it.
I know.
Let's just go around and see what did people like. Teresa, what did you like?
Well, I can't honestly say like favorite thing. So, we've kind of sort of brainstormed sort of the things that we like. So the first thing I want to talk about for me is the introduction of all the new characters. And it's not any one specific or any one specific instance, but just the way that they introduced them and how they highlighted the strengths of each one and sort of some humor for each one. And they really did a great job of helping us to get to know them even in the short amount of time of like their first introduction. And I guess if I was to pick one, it wouldn't be the one that I would even think I would pick. The only reason that I'm picking this one now is because thanks to Lucasfilm Press and Disney Press, actually, I got my copy of Star Wars Before the Awakening by Greg Rucka just the other day, and I started reading it. And it tells, this book is really cool. If you haven't read it or gotten it, you need to. And it tells the story of Finn first, and talking about who he is and where he kind of came from, and talks about his friends in the stormtrooper order, like who his little group of 4 friends is. And it came to my attention through reading Before the Awakening and then also the visual guide that the character, the stormtrooper that puts the blood handprint on his helmet, it's his friend FN 2003, who they actually call, his nickname is Slip. And so after reading that, his character introduction to me, for me, became so much more powerful, that was actually one of his main core group of 4 friends. But I haven't finished the book yet, so ask me again who my favorite is after I finish the book. But just the introduction of all of them was awesome.
Yeah, Greg Rucka does a good job.
I mean, I agree. In the movie, it's much like A New Hope, where, you see these characters and they get together and they don't spend a lot of time together, but what little time they do spend together, it's full of character development and just the banter back and forth of characters. And I think that, The Force Awakens does that really, really well. I mean, the whole interchange between Finn and Poe when they're in the ship, the TIE fighter trying to escape the finalizer, that was just an amazing little moment. And it was maybe 2 minutes, but you really got their personalities in that.
Tricia, did you have any specific ones that kind of stuck out to you?
Yeah, Poe lived up to it. He lived up to the hype. I've been talking about him for a long time. So he was actually pretty, it was incredible how he could in that little bit of time that he was on screen, you knew that he was a good mentor and a leader, just in the way he reinforced to BB-8 that I'm going to come back to you, you're going to be okay. And that just the way he asked Finn what he could do and then was able to direct him. Oh, this is all you have to do. You didn't use port and starboard. He used your left and my right type of language. So he's able to pass along information to people and lead them, which is very important. That tells a lot about the character right then. And he's also very witty. I have to say that it just, he's the first laugh of the movie, and it's not really where you would think you would laugh, but he gets it done there. A little sass talking to Kylo Ren.
That was awesome. So do you talk first? Do I talk first? It's hard to understand you with all the apparatus.
That was a great line. But I want Steve, why did Kylo Ren speak to you? Because it seemed to me that was your guy.
Well, honestly, of the new characters, Poe is up there for me. I'm really struggling with trying to figure out, who my favorite is. What I dig about Kylo Ren as a villain is that it's a new take on a villain, not only in Star Wars, but it's a different spin on a villain than we've had in a long time in any type of entertainment or literature, because this is a guy who is literally afraid of becoming good for whatever reason. There's something psychologically messed up there. When you think back to the fall of Anakin, his whole deal wasn't to go to the dark side and be, an evil Sith Lord. He wanted to save his wife. He regretted not being able to save his mom. He was looking for power to bring that kind of stuff to fruition, as well as to keep order in the galaxy. When you get to then in Return of the Jedi, it's not that Vader's scared of becoming good. When you hit Return of the Jedi, he says, "It's too late for me, my son." That's what he tells Luke. And so he just feels like he's too far gone. He's kind of hopeless. He's locked into things. Well, Kylo Ren is scared. He's scared of being, he says he's being seduced by the light. And so the conflict in him is that he doesn't want to go to the light. He wants to stay in the dark side. And that's, it's not someone I can necessarily relate to, but in a world where we've made villains so sympathetic to the point that they're almost the heroes. I really dig a guy who's just like, I want to be on, regardless of how right he thinks he is for doing it, we can all look and clearly see he's messed up. And I really like the portrayal of him as the villain, because I think what would be an interesting turn for Star Wars is that if we don't see a redemption story for him, but rather we see him do what the Sith did and rise up and kill his master and, try to assert his authority and rule and have to be defeated. I think it's going to be really interesting if we see him not so much being turned, but having to be defeated. And that would be something new in Star Wars. And that would be something I think refreshing in storytelling nowadays.
Do you follow Kylo Ren on Twitter? It's emo Kylo Ren, and it's at Kylo R3N. Do you guys all follow him?
No.
I do.
No.
I just retweeted him. You got to follow him.
See, I'm having a lot of struggles with Kylo Ren because I love the character of Kylo Ren, and I love that he, is basically a Jedi killer, which is what the First Order has nicknamed him. And I found all this out from the Visual Dictionary by Pablo Hidalgo. And there's so much that I love about him, how volatile he is, how unpolished he is, how he throws temper tantrums, how his lightsaber is not smooth. He's just not smooth. He's not all together. It's like he's about to fall apart, but yet not, because he's so strong. And then he takes off his mask and it's Adam Driver. And I'm like, messing up the whole image. Put it back on.
So you didn't like that he took off his mask?
Oh, I don't care if he takes off his mask. The problem is that as much as I love the way Adam Driver plays this character, I am not attracted to Adam Driver at all. So with the mask on, it's much easier for me to be in love with this dark character.
What about his hair, though?
No,
He does have great hair.
No, I'm sorry. I need Poe Dameron hair, not whatever's going on. But one of the things I found is, since we're talking about Kylo Ren right now, I know, Steve, you and I had kind of bantered back and forth about whether or not Kylo Ren was the one that they referred to, that Luke lost, and all this stuff. As I was reading through the visual guide, I actually came to terms with the fact that he is actually the one who fell and betrayed the students of Master Luke Skywalker, as well as Luke, and went after all of the Jedi that Luke was training, and that one of the missions that has been given to him by Supreme Leader Snoke is similar to what we're seeing in Rebels, is he's supposed to be hunting down the remnants of any Jedi.
So it wasn't Snoke that turned on Luke and seduced Kylo. He somehow got to Kylo, or he got to Ben.
He got to Rin Ben.
Yeah, and tempted him into turning on Luke. And so I guess the Knights of Ren are almost like another faction, maybe, of the Inquisitors.
They are not Sith.
Right.
They are just a remnant power in the dark side, but they are not Sith, and they say that explicitly.
Well, here's my question. Did the Knights of Ren exist before Kylo Ren, or did Kylo Ren create them?
I think that they existed before him, because when they talk about his helmet in the visual guide, they say that his helmet is patterned after the battle gear of the Knights of Ren. So the Knights of Ren must have existed, and then he sort of came into being like the head of the Knights of Ren.
I think Kylo Ren's got the best hair for a villain since Alan Rickman in the original Die Hard.
One of the things is it is very Inquisitor-like from Rebels, just the way the setup of the room. We've seen Kanan in that, in that same position, getting, trying to get information out of him. So if nothing else, Star Wars Rebels has taught us a little bit of the language, and maybe the younger generation, the language of these new Darksiders, because it was very much a mind game in this movie for Kylo to get information out of Poe, which we saw he did easily, and then later on that was that step went on to be reproduced. So I feel like they were trying to show us something in Rebels about the language of how Darksiders can work, not just the way we're used to them in the original trilogy or Anakin in the prequel trilogy. And I love that Kylo's hair he looks like Anakin with the hairdo and everything.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I mean, it's very, and then at the end, he has the scar. He's going to have a scar like Anakin, too. So
everybody's getting scars on their face. Ezra, Luke, Anakin, Ben.
I mean, he takes his helmet off. It's like, man, he looks just like, he doesn't look like Anakin, but it's like somebody who's trying to look like Anakin. So, and it's very interesting too, because just to give people a framework, if you were watching speculation and if you were looking at spoilers way long time ago, they had said that their killer was going to be a Jedi killer character, and there was a lot of deflection. That's not what it's going to be. And if you look at the art of The Force Awakens, that was the original concept all along, was this character would be a Jedi killer. So it's interesting how that was out there a long time ago, and it essentially came to be, but they don't really call him a Jedi killer in the movie, but that's, except for, in the scroll, we know what his goal is, but that was the concept from early on. And that art book is really cool to look at. So I recommend it.
Yeah, that Jedi killer almost looks like a cross between Darth Maul and Hellboy.
Mm-hmm.
Big and red. He's got a blaster. He's got a lightsaber. He's got a pager. He is ready to go.
See, he's like an amped up Darth Maul. Like, Darth Maul is still pretty polished and together, and Kylo Ren is like what Darth Maul could be.
Well, Kylo Ren was more of a child. The child who
exactly
just took
temper tantrum boy.
Yeah.
But when he didn't get his own way, he'd take out his lightsaber and slash everything, and he took his ball and he went home. That was his whole attitude.
That's like one of the best scenes is when the stormtroopers are coming around the corner and the Inquisition chair comes out and they're like, "Yep, we're just gonna turn around and go the other way."
Take the scenic
route.
And
I love the interaction between Kylo Ren and General Hux. They're just like fighting for, I'm more important. No, I'm more important. No, I'm better. And it kind of shows sort of Kylo Ren is in that same place as Vader was, where what he needed to get done sort of superseded the military goals, and it was like trying to figure out like who had more power at different times.
So, one of the things that a lot of people talked about was the reactions to legacy characters as the movie went on. And I've been to it, 5 times now, and there's always been different levels of reaction to all the characters. Although I have to say, there wasn't any applause any of the times for Luke. I don't know if people were just sort of in awe or they were absorbing, but of the legacy characters, and I'm kind of partial to this because I got to rate about this ship in the Ultimate Star Wars book. Millennium Falcon got more cheers than any of the original big 3 actors when they were characters and they came back. So that is one of my favorite moments in the movie, is just that pan over when she's like, "No, that's garbage," and then it's like, "Oh no, we have to fly in that ship." And so, did you guys get that reaction too? Is everybody like, "Whoa, it's the Millennium Falcon"?
Absolutely, yeah.
At the height of this big chase scene, and we're all ready for this big battle, and then all of a sudden we pan over to our friend, the Millennium Falcon. I think the feeling everyone was, the adrenaline that was being pumped through everyone just exploded when they saw our old friend, the Millennium Falcon.
At this point, I had, I was in the throes of trying to figure out the new visual language of Star Wars, which we'll talk about momentarily, but when she said that's garbage and the jumper they're going to take blows up and she says, "We'll take the garbage," and they run to it, whoever was sitting next to me, I guess it was Bethany on one side and Riley on the other. I have to apologize because I'm sure that there is a bruise on their leg where I just grabbed and squeezed because I almost came out of my seat at that moment. It was such it wasn't how I was expecting that ship to be introduced. It wasn't anything, that was the great thing about the marketing of this film, is you had no idea. So it was good to see the old Falcon.
Well, Tricia, was that your first things that you like?
Yes, that was my first. That is my moment.
Oh, awesome. Well, mine kind of branches right off that, because one of my favorite moments is when Han Solo and Chewie board the Falcon, and you get that moment, we're home, and everyone in the theater cheers. But then Han goes on and he goes into the cockpit of the Falcon, and he's like looking around and touching things, and he gets that grin, and then the camera just stays on him just a little bit longer, like it lingers for the fans, and that it's always the grin that just does it for me, that Han Solo grin. So that was one of my favorite moments, and it's especially bittersweet, like the second time you watch it, because this is one of the last times he's going to be sitting in that cockpit of the Falcon. So for me, that I just love that. Did anyone else get that? Feelings?
And it was interesting too, because he said we're home, and then later on when he's with Maz, she tells him to go home and go back. So there's a little bit of interesting storytelling with that. So, and also we're home. He says we're home, and he's in the Falcon back, essentially in the muck of fighting against the dark side. So he's like, we're home, but for him to be home, he has to go back into the fight. That's sort of the interesting arc of the storytelling, right? Because he's sort of wandering adrift in the original trilogy. He finds a place that he's accepted and welcome, and that he wants to be with his friends. And he's obviously been out adrift, and he gets his ship back, but that comes with a cost. It's a great storytelling thing, is you don't get anything. You don't get to have good things without a cost to it. And so he's in that ship. He takes the ship to Maz, and she says, go home. So Maz, who's an old friend, doesn't believe he's home yet.
Huh.
So it was very powerful when she said that.
Yeah, and then you get that great moment of Han saying, this is not how I thought this day would go.
I did love
I know.
Richard, what was one of your stellar moments?
One of my stellar moments was, this was like a family reunion. Going into this movie, I just could not wait to go home. And I know some of these characters more than I know my own family. So it was fantastic seeing the Millennium Falcon, seeing Luke, Han, and Leia. And it felt like this was something that was just meant to be, and was just such a personal feeling throughout the whole film. And as we're going through meeting new characters, Finn, Rey, BB-8, Poe, Kylo Ren, they all felt like Star Wars as well. So I just felt like my whole world was aligned right to this moment. And most times in movies, I'm sitting there just picking them apart in my head, but this one here, it just felt like I was surrounded by friends. It was a totally immersive feeling.
Oh.
So that's the one favorite thing I could say about The Force Awakens. As Star Wars fans, we're home.
No.
And then to go on Kylo Ren, I walked into this movie loving Kylo Ren. I couldn't wait to get more of him. But when I saw what he did to Han, I felt such a big disconnect. And I could feel myself moving away from him, even to the point where I didn't want to get the Kylo Ren Christmas lawn ornament anymore. After what you did to Han, I don't want you on my lawn. But then he went on sale, so we got the Kylo Ren lawn ornament.
50% off. That did it for you.
Yeah, that did it. But you know what? I sent him away from the R2, 3PO, Yoda, and the Avengers on our front lawn, so now he's sitting there by himself. But yeah, he was there.
Did anybody else expect Han to die? Was anybody else expecting it? Was everyone shocked?
I was shocked.
I so didn't want it to happen. I know this was his thing since Return of the Jedi, and I had a nagging feeling that this was he came on to The Force Awakens just because he knew he was going to get his final wish. And at the end, when we see him up with Kylo Ren, I kept thinking, oh, come on, Han, just back away, Han, back away. And after every time we've seen the film, it's like, you know what, if we pause it here, he won't die. But when he grabs that lightsaber and the whole room turns dim and a red flash comes up on Kylo Ren, I thought, oh no, that was foreshadowing right there. And I'm so glad they did that filmmaking technique, because they gave you a couple of seconds to prep yourself for that moment when the lightsaber pierced through Han's torso.
Yeah, I actually had this as like my next thing that I liked was actually the buildup of Han Solo and then the death of Han Solo. And I don't know if I expected him to die. I expected someone to die. I didn't necessarily expect him to die, but it makes sense that it would be him. But they did it in such a way of really building up who he was, bringing him back to Leia, and then him having doing the one thing that Leia has asked him to do, which was try to talk to his son and try to get his son to come back into the light. And he did it. He did what she asked him to do, which is something that we see about Han Solo as he grew older through the three movies, is that he became more and more willing to accept responsibility for things and to not just run away. And he needed to do as a father. But, the first time I saw it, when Kylo lit the lightsaber and ran it through him, I apologized to all my kids. You bastard. Wait, that's so awesome. Because it really builds up the villain character. That he knew he had to do something to fight the one thing that he knew was calling him back to the light, which was his father. And he had to get rid of that in order for him to continue on his path. And it just makes for such an amazing villain. And we don't see villains a lot of times in films who do what is necessary to really tell the story and to help them continue their own personal, I don't know, truth or whatever it is. But I love all of that whole entire scene. Not because I like seeing Han die. I cry every time. And it's not Han dying that makes me cry. It's Chewie freaking out and going, die everybody! And like where it looks like where he's going to, do a full on, suicide bombing, basically, of like lighting all the detonators and stuff. And I was like, well, he just killed himself. I really did. I was like, Chewie just committed suicide for the greater good and because he can't live without his buddy. So it's that makes me cry, but it's the whole story of Han in this film and then his death that just really, it was something that was just like, wow, now that's awesome.
Now, do you think it was Han that was calling him back to the light? Because I had perceived it as he was feeling the light from his mom because they had that Force connection. And she was the one that she was the one that saw the good in him, saw a little bit of light, where Han just gave up and went into not so much hiding, but he turned his back on everything just like Luke did. And I got the impression that it was Leia calling out to him throughout the Force to come back.
No, I think it was being face to face with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
That it's that father-son bond kind of thing that's going on there. And
well, earlier in the film where he's talking to Vader's helmet, he's saying that he feels the light within him. And I think that's Leia calling out to him through the Force.
I think it's
I love that interpretation, actually. I hadn't considered it, but I love it.
I've just been interpreting as that he's good. Like he feels the light side of the Force. He knows that what he's doing, there's a big part of him that knows what he's doing is wrong. He tells Han that he's feeling torn apart. Luke talked about, he told Vader when he was talking to him on that catwalk, he says, I feel the good in you, the conflict. And Vader says, there is no conflict. Well, Kylo's admitting there's a conflict here. And I need you to help me do something, And of course, Han doesn't realize he's talking about killing him. And he said, sure, anything. And so I think there was a moment where Kylo was going to go with Han, where he was going to walk away, that he was struggling, not necessarily, I don't, I think it's a great theory. I think it's a great idea. I don't necessarily come down on that side with you, but I just think that it's more about what's within Kylo Ren than anything else. And I think in that moment with Han specifically, it was just being there face to face with his dad, someone he hadn't seen in a long time, and because there's still got to be within him, no matter what he said to Rey about Han being a disappointment as a father, there's always something in all of us, no matter how much of a disappointment our fathers are, where we're trying to, for whatever reason, please them and make them proud. And so there, you can, I think it's safe to infer that or project that rather onto that character, as much as it's safe to project the idea that Leia whether knowingly or unknowingly, is calling out to him. I think that's where, this story is going to have to go. My hope is that this death becomes the thing that rocks the rest of the story the way it should.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about who is affected by this. It's not just the fans who was watching, but, within the story. Of course, Leia's affected, but now Luke's affected, because now Luke has to deal with, if I'd have been there, if I'd have stuck around and tried to fight this battle, would my friend Han still be alive? Would he still be here? How's Rey going to deal with it? Because now she has a reason to want vengeance and to lean into the dark side more, because of Han and then because of what Kylo did to Finn. So there's, the dark side is creeping up and the dark side is making its moves. And the death of Han is at the center of that, or it should be. The question is, will it be? And I just think, I don't know. I feel like the death of Han Solo came way too soon.
Steve, just so you know that they did do a roundtable, Kasdan and Abrams and Arndt talking about it, and his death was not a given.
Okay.
They had to come that decision, because I speculated very cynically that it was Ford went in for one, and that was not the case. They had to come to the decision to kill him, and they talked about it. They felt like they needed him to evolve. Now I have different opinions on where they started Han and Leia. Like, I'm not so crazy about that, but that's maybe a whole nother discussion on why they decided to do that. But Han's dying wasn't a given when they started and wrote the script.
Yeah, we'll see, and that's good to know. You want to see your heroes have a good, happy ending, and unfortunately, we don't get to see that for Han Solo, and that just that it's all fan perspective here. And I'm a sucker and I'm a sap, but man, that's what bothers me more than anything else about this.
Well, and there's this great moment where he's run him through the heart, and he reaches up and touches him on the face. And that, at least in the novelization, I don't get the impression that Kylo was in it. He had made this decision. He was doing what he was doing, but the act of doing it, he thought would make him more powerful.
Right.
And it's how I read it on the screen too. He knew this is what he needed to do. That was in the kind of discussion with Snoke. But it didn't make him more powerful. It weakened him. And, as you see, because you're like, how are they going to fight beyond that? How's anybody going to fight Kylo Ren? Because we've seen what he can do holding, a lightning, a laser bolt and stopping it. So we know he's really powerful. He can suck things out of people's minds. So of course, they established how strong that laser bolt, I'm trying to think of his weapon, his crossbow, and he, gets him in the side with it. So Kylo's obviously distracted by the act of doing it, because we know he can stop a laser bolt, but he doesn't. And then they slowly getting weakened through this whole fight, that's one of my favorite things too, is him beating his side. I think, part of that is he hurts about killing his father, and he hurts. It's not just, when you hurt so bad and you just want there to be a reason you hurt so bad, but it's not just that Chewie shooting him in the side that hurts. I think he didn't realize what it was going to cost him until it happened, which is kind of one of the things that we all go through in life, where we do something and then realize afterwards, like, oh man, I didn't realize that was going to cost that to me. I thought it was going to be better, but it didn't end up better. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, Tricia, you brought up the whole like him hitting himself in the side kind of thing, and it's sort of a thing that happens with like athletes or just with certain kinds of people. Inflicting pain on yourself or being able to it's one of those reminders of like what you need to do. And like I've been there, especially with playing sports and stuff, where like I've hurt, like my leg or my knee or something, and I'll do that exact same thing and just be like, like this doesn't hurt me, like I'm stronger than this, and I'm gonna overcome this kind of thing. And I've been there, so it's kind of like I saw that moment and I was like, yeah, there it is. You find it in yourself, like you're getting affected by seeing your dad and having to do what you had to do, but you're going to show your strength now. And that's what that to me was about. It was a power thing. But Steve, let's talk about one of yours. I mean, I know that you are like just crazy about Maz Kanata.
I am indeed. In fact, with Maz, I'm even working on a parody song.
Nice.
So I am, I listen. This character is someone who I really doubted going in what I would think of her and what I would like, but from the minute she turns around and hollers out Han's name and walks up to him and says, "Where's my boyfriend?" and he says, "Chewie's working on the Falcon," and she's like, "I like that Wookiee." She looks up and it's like, "I like that Wookiee," and everything she does. I mean, this is an ancient character. You know, she's been around for 1,000 years, and she tells Rey, "I'm not a Jedi, but I know the Force." And you know, having lived so long and doing what she does, you almost get the sense that the reason all those flags fly around her castle, and Teresa, you'll probably either shoot all this down or support it with all the visual dictionary stuff. But the reason all those flags fly around her castle is that that's where people come, and regardless of who you have a beef with, that's kind of like the safe haven, the safe port, you know, where you can go and you know you're not going to get shot in the back, because if you do, you'll have to deal with Maz. And she's that great little character she's funny, at the same time she's wise, and at the same time she just oozes authority where she is. And so I fell in love with that little girl.
I think she's
Aw.
old, by the way.
Oh, that old lady. Well, yeah, she's 1,000 years old.
How about her goggles? She's using them when she tells Finn that she sees him, but when she looks at Rey later on, she takes them off. And I just found that really fascinating. I don't know what that means, but it means something.
I think.
Well, her goggles are corrective lenses. They say that in the visual dictionary. So basically, she needs them to see.
Well, maybe she took them off when she's talking to Rey because she wants to view Rey's aura or force, you know, like her forceness, if you will, rather than see her, you know, like sometimes when you dull a sense, your other senses get bigger. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So by taking off the corrective lenses, she's sensing Rey with, you know, in a different way.
Well, I think it just made it more personal when she's taking off the lenses. Now she wants to see her eye to eye, kind of like Anakin said to Luke, "I want to see you with my own eyes." Mm. So she wanted to see. She had a serious moment right there, and she was right there. So she wanted to get more personal with her.
Yeah, cool.
Kind of like that awesome scene in broadcast news going back to 1987 when Holly Hunter pushes the microphone out of her face so she can talk to people one-on-one. That was such a great moment because that really said, "I want to become personal with you."
I come down on the same side as you do there, Rich, with that idea that's how I interpret it. Is she opens those goggles up to have no barriers. You know, because she talks to Finn about, you know, I've seen the same eyes, and she talks about Rey to see in her eyes. And so she's given Rey the opportunity to look directly into her eyes, you know, and to see what's coming from her as she's talking to Rey about what has happened in that moment.
Well, if this helps you guys, I'm reading her page. She actually does have a connection and an affinity for the Force, but she's mostly used it to keep herself out of danger. She's never walked the path of actually trying to develop her connection with the Force. And she's only been comfortable sort of acknowledging that she has some sort of Force ability since the death of the Emperor. So she never really wanted to like show it before then. And just some kind of interesting stuff about her castle. People can go there for services that include appraisals, loans, medical assistance, food, room and board, games of chance, navigational updates, and basic repairs. So that's what her castle is for.
Huh.
Well, it was for.
And she has a statue in the castle of ancient Jedi Master Sheriff Myota. So she apparently has some other Jedi-related things in her place of living, dwelling place.
Speaking of little short people in the story, and I can't believe we haven't talked about him more, but BB-8, I mean, I loved him beforehand. The movie, I have like everything BB-8 I can find, but just he lived up to it all in the movie, and just I felt such an affinity for him, and I don't know why. That's so strange, right? Droids, I know, R2. We loved him too, but did anybody have favorite BB-8 moment? Because I had a lot.
All of them.
Oh yes. No, I did. You know what? Well, when you first see BB-8 on screen, I remember the first couple times we watched the movie, I'm like, oh, look, ah. I was like, I got all excited in the theater. And, but one of my favorite scenes is when BB-8 meets Rey, and, Rey is telling BB-8, okay, the place is over there, and see you later. And BB-8 wants to follow her. And when she finally agrees, that he can come with her, his little body, it like rolls underneath his head, like he's wagging his tail or something.
Like a little puppy.
Oh my god, it's the cutest thing. I think in the theater, I was like, ah. Anyway, and everyone looked at me. What's wrong?
Yeah, everything about BB-8 is great. Everything, and I know that Steve's favorite moment with BB-8 is the thumbs up.
Oh yeah, that's definitely my favorite moment because something you didn't see coming.
Well, it's for me, it's the thumbs up, and then when he points out the tape, the binding tape, he just looks down at it.
He's like, dude, it's right there.
There were so many things that BB-8 did that, and I don't mean this as a negative way at all, reminded me of a Muppet, in a good way. And so I think there was just an immediate affinity I had for that droid that I had no idea that I would have, and I love it.
When he looks back and forth when Finn's trying to talk him into it, and he's like, head's going whoop whoop
Yes.
whoop whoop, and I mean, there's nothing needs to be said, but he's like, well,
processing.
Yes, exactly. He's like trying to figure it out, and that whole scene. I have to say that whole scene is fantastic. Just the banter between Rey and Finn, BB-8, and just Finn, the whole time trying, he's admitting to the droid. He's like, I'm not who I say I'm not. I'll get you back, but I'm not. He's fessing up to the droid, and she's just doing her thing and then bossing him around. And he's just like, okay. No, how'd you say? No.
Yeah, it's more of like, that was actually later on we were going to talk about some of our favorite moments, but that's my favorite scene of the whole film.
Well, as funny as BB-8 is, it was such a sad moment when Finn tells him that Poe didn't make the crash, and BB-8 he rolls away and just needs a moment to himself.
Yeah,
that was
head
so
goes down.
So sad. He just had to be by himself for that one moment.
Well, Richard, did you have a second moment that you really liked?
It wasn't so much a moment, but more thematic. I love the mystery of the whole film, and I liked the fact that they didn't have to tie up every single thing. They set up so much for episode 8, but it kind of like where The Empire Strikes Back, where everyone just wanted to know what happens. Here, we want to know what happens, but we're satisfied at the very end because we don't know where Finn came from. We don't know Rey's last name. We don't know what's going on with Kylo Ren. We don't know a whole lot at the end, and I love the fact that they kept so much a mystery, and when we walked out, we were completely satisfied. Well,
or you really just wanted to watch episode 8.
Well, I wanted to watch Rogue One, then episode 8. But I think J.J. Abrams just hit the nail on the head. I don't think many filmmakers could pull that off as successfully as he did it. So many great moments, and so much that it just keeps, like what we're all doing now, just speculating and going off of what's going to happen next, and what does this mean, and what does that mean? And I love a film that makes you think, and this film definitely does make you think.
And the fact that after each viewing, you notice something more, something different. I love that.
There's a ton of stuff just hidden throughout this whole film, but as much as we love it, there's also things that I know that we are kind of a little bit critical of. I mean, not necessarily things we don't like, but just things that we wish like maybe would have been done a little bit differently, or, things like that. So like for me, honestly, we really haven't talked about Captain Phasma, and that's because there's not much to talk about. They hyped her up in the marketing, as if she was going to be this great female villain and all of this stuff. And yet what we saw of her was very minimal and very almost condescending in a way to me, because they didn't let her do anything. she was there. They were building her up at the beginning, and then the scene with the trash compactor scene happens, and she just lets the shields down like no big deal.
Yeah.
And there was no fight. There was no anything, and I don't understand it. And I'm convinced she's still alive and that she got off of Starkiller Base and that she's going to be bigger and stronger in the next movie, because if she's not, what in the world, Star Wars?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. And it's so sad because Gwendolyn Christie herself and all the press was like so eloquent and, about her character, and I was so excited to see where it was going. And today I actually saw a meme on Facebook that kind of brought it to a head, and that was there's a picture or someone said, we were all into Captain Phasma until this guy. And it was a picture of the stormtrooper with the laser thing on his arm that
Baton.
fought Finn.
Because it's so true.
Yeah, it's
That
like,
guy was amazing.
why couldn't that have been Captain Phasma? That would have been an awesome scene.
Yeah, like why couldn't that have been Captain Phasma coming to confront the stormtrooper from her unit that went rogue? Why was it this guy? And I mean,
wouldn't that have been awesome?
So amazing.
Yes.
Then there's the problem of how do they get away from Captain Phasma at that point, because Han shoots that stormtrooper.
Oh, that's right. He does. He kills him.
Yeah. So how do you how do you get away? Because if Captain Phasma's gonna kick butt like that,
right?
How do they get away from her?
I don't think
so they just get away from her by putting her in the trash compactor.
Yeah, she's gonna. But that we know that Star Wars, the conceit is you're gonna make it out of the trash compactor, so that's sort of the hand wave. The victory in Captain Phasma is that they admit that she was a gender swap, that they hadn't even thought about making it a female character. And if you they did a good job of having, there's one-liner characters in the movie that are women, but if she hadn't have been a woman, we would be talking a lot about how there was a lead, but still a lack of diversity in women with speaking roles other than the lead character. And so that makes a difference. If you put her up with Boba Fett and what he really does in the movies, Boba Fett really doesn't do anything in the movies and sort of pond.
I disagree. Because in Empire, it's Boba Fett that leads Vader to Cloud City.
Yeah, and she does some things, but ultimately in the end, there's more hype about Boba Fett than he does do things and she does do things, but in the end, Boba Fett ends up in the Sarlacc pit and she ends up in the garbage compactor. So
I don't think she's dead. I think that we'll see her back, and I hope they give her more to do, because Gwendolyn Christie is too good of an actor, and she's too well versed in being able to do combat acting to not end up having something substantial to do on screen. And that character, that is such a great looking character. That armor and everything is just so cool looking. And every time she was on the screen, I was just like, oh, it looks so. Today when I was watching, I'm like, that armor just looks so stinking great and so special and so. Let's see her be Captain Phasma. And hopefully we'll get that in episode 8.
So here's a fun tidbit for you guys about Phasma. Her armor is coated in salvaged chromium from a Naboo yacht once owned by Emperor Palpatine.
What?
That's awesome.
That is what the visual dictionary says. So you're welcome.
Wow. Goodness.
Well, that makes me wonder if she's a bit of a zealot herself.
Yeah.
In the vein of kind of Hux and Kylo.
Well, it seems that the First Order is full of those kind of,
I guess so,
zealots.
Yeah.
Huh. All right.
Did anybody think she walked like she had mechanical legs or something when we did get to see her walk, or was that just me?
In the first scene, yes, on Jakku. Yes, I definitely see what you're talking about there. I'm like, she's not a robot. Why is she walking that way?
Yeah, okay. Well, then it wasn't just me. She doesn't look that way the second time we see her.
Not the second time, but the first time for sure. It's almost like her Under Armour was riding up a little bit.
I think all the stormtroopers kind of had a funny walk, like their uniforms didn't fit quite right. Huh. So that just fit more in the continuity of everyone else.
Did the armor look thicker to you? Like it made
did.
them thicker, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially in the legs. And it looked like they cast some really short people to getting those costumes because they were walking like, you ever see a 501st guy and the costume's a little bit too big and he's walking like he's got stumpy legs? That's what some of these stormtroopers felt like. They were
stumpy legs.
Yeah, like they were just a little bit too short. I think they were going off on the whole too short for a stormtrooper bit.
So, Richard, what is one of the things that kind of, got you thinking a little bit that you weren't really too psyched about?
I'm not sure if this is something that I wasn't too psyched about, but it bothered me to a point in the whole film that this felt like a Star Trek film with Star Wars characters. And I love the Star Trek films, but I wanted this to feel like a Star Wars movie, and it just kind of didn't fit right with me, especially during that first scene in the village when here comes the Imperials and they start firing their weapons, but they don't have the same stormtrooper sound effects, and the lasers are totally different from what we've seen in the past. And I know they want to differentiate themselves from what we've seen in the past, but I want that connection to the other 6 movies, and that would have done it. Just like I wanted to see Rhodians or Ithorians in Maz Kanata's castle, just to tie everything together, and not hearing the same laser blasts. It set me apart. And between that and the cinematography, I know it was shot by the same gentleman who did the Star Trek movie, so you're going to have that Star Trek feel. It just, every scene played out more like Star Trek than Star Wars, which is what the opposite was in Star Trek. It was a Star Wars film and a Star Trek film.
Well, Richard, again, I find myself on the exact same page with you because that was my big thing coming out of that first viewing. Is the visual? There is a visual language to Star Wars.
Yeah, oh, definitely, yeah.
And I've been really called on the carpet, for this by some people. But I've mentioned it on Geek Out Loud and other places. But the visual language is gone, and some people are like, well, it's just changed. And my thing has always been, well, if you're the fan that J.J. Abrams claims to be, and you have the ability to now make this movie. If I, as a fan who's not a filmmaker, can see that it doesn't look right, then surely a filmmaker with an eye for movie making, who is a fan of those of the movies that have come before, surely he can see that because there's a way the camera moves or doesn't move.
Yeah,
there were moments. There were so many moments where, because of the intense focus on practical effects, there were a lot of moments where your digital effects didn't blend in very well and stood out too much. And it's all very technical stuff. The wipes are all but gone, those classic old school, what people call bad movie making, transitional wipes on the screen. They're pretty much gone, and they've been replaced with quick wipes, quick camera movement type wipes to whatever direction they're doing. And it's just, yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't look like Star Wars. A lot of people think that the shot of the Falcon flying through hyperspace is really cool. It looks too much like Star Trek.
Yeah,
it's too much like Warp Speed in Star Trek. And I get that you want to, hey, we're in a different time, we're in a different era. But I'll take you to one major shot, and that's the final shot of the movie. Such a great moment, such a great way to end, to cap things off with Rey and Luke standing there. But every Star Wars movie ends with a static shot on the characters who are on the screen, and this ended with a helicopter shot spinning around those two, and that's just not the look and feel of Star Wars. And so it is kind of a minor quibble when it all comes right down to it, because the focus of Star Wars has got to be the story and the characters. But it was enough to cause me to scratch my head and to feel a little bit out of place until my second and third viewing of this movie.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, the Star Wars cinematic language. Like, Lucas is a master of the wide-angle shot that places you in the location, so you know exactly what's going on. In a day and age where filmmakers are afraid to pull out to show you the master shot, like, I'm speaking to you, Christopher Nolan and Batman, where there's so many fight scenes. Like, who is winning? Who is fighting? What time of day is it? Where are we? Lucas pulls back and he shows you everything that's going on, and I love that about him. And I was looking. My friend even said afterwards, "Rich, did you see any of the Lucas long shots. Like, no, we really didn't. And each one of the prequel films, I would just cheer every time we would get a Lucas long shot. And this one, we didn't really get those.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the long shots, other than, like I say, that final shot of the movie. But you're exactly right. That's the establishing shots that Lucas had were so good, and there was so much in them. Yeah, I missed a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and for that islands where Luke lived, I wanted to see more creatures and aliens, because it did feel more like a location in Dublin than another intergalactic location. I wanted, like on Dagobah, you would always see the swamp bats flying around, and these little creatures bugging in and out. I wanted to see more of that to make me believe this was a whole different world.
Whole new world.
Well, let's see. For Tricia, did you have anything else that you were a little critical of?
For me, this movie was so intense. It was going, and the story was running forward, and it was almost kind of a joke because everybody was always sweating and panting for what was happening. And then I felt like I knew from when we saw Han as the mentor character in the ads that there's only one way for the mentor to go in the opening movie of a Star Wars trilogy. So I was kind of like I knew that was coming. And I felt the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, for all the going, it just slowed down way too much at that moment. I understand there was a lot that had to be said and a lot that went on. And it wasn't the Han Kylo itself that everybody else stopped. Everything else stopped. And there's Rey and Finn just watching and Chewie watching. I'm like, why are they watching? Why are they watching this long? Because these characters have never stopped anywhere in the movie. And I'm like, okay, I understand. But it just felt like it was like, okay, we're slowing down to linger on this, just to linger on it. And it felt like that was this point in the movie that it slowed down too much and then picked back up. That was it's one of those things when it kicks you out of the story, that's when you have to go, okay. And every time I see it, I still feel that it's too slow there. And it bothers me that other characters are I understand why they have to watch it happen, why they have to see it happen, but I don't understand why they would stand there and watch it happen. So I just don't know. I just felt like I felt like everything was so strong in the storytelling and the beats and moving the characters and giving them motivations that was a weak point. J.J. Abrams is notorious for this. When he starts the countdown clock on something, he doesn't stick to his time. And time goes... this has happened so many times, but it doesn't stick to his time. So for me, I would have liked that to have been a little cleaner.
Oddly enough, I wanted to see lens flares.
Ironically,
I wanted to see the lens flares.
When Poe's shot was paused by Kylo Ren, you saw a lens flare.
There's tons of lens flare. Yeah, there's tons of lens. If in 3D, there's tons of lens flare.
But they're very subtle.
I noticed all the second time I saw it in 3D, I was like, oh my gosh, especially in the early Jakku shots. It was like, whoa, yeah, they're in there.
All right, I feel better now.
Okay, well, in general, we love the movie. So as we move away from these little tiny things, the best part is that they're nitpicky. I mean,
very much so.
These are nitpicky little things. It's nothing major. But we do all have some favorite moments, but we have to give Sarah the floor because she is so into the music, and because of her, I had to buy the soundtrack the very first day it came out and spent like the entire day listening to it going, I have to be able to talk to Sarah about music. So Sarah, how long did it take you for you to start really being able to feel the music, and what was your favorite moment?
Okay, well, it was really the second time I saw the movie that I was more paying attention to the music a little more. And that's when I heard something that we're going to talk about a little later with Tricia's favorite moment. But one of my favorite moments that hit me right away when I first saw it is that awesome fanfare that happens when the Falcon is flying through the Star Destroyer, and it's also echoed when we see Poe shooting TIE fighters, and he's targeting stormtroopers on the ground right by Finn, Chewie, and Han and Takodana, and you get that one long tracking shot, as Poe's X-Wing is dancing through the air. So I just love this cue. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's like he's soaring, and I know all the books that I read about X-Wing fights, and they always describe a really awesome pilot that's almost like dancing. I think actually, Tricia, you described that in your book Wind, and so finally on screen here is what I've always like pictured in my head when it's described in books for me. So I thought that was just a wonderful, wonderful moment, and John Williams does it again.
Yes, he does. The soundtrack is, there's a lot of things that when you start listening to, you hear different things come out from all the movies, which is great. It's not just a love story to the original trilogy music. So it's definitely prequel trilogy stuff.
And I know some people have been complaining about this particular soundtrack, that it's not as powerful as the others, that it doesn't have a lot of those big moments. And honestly, I have to disagree with those people, because the more and more I listen to it, the more I pull out of the film. And there are so many things, and maybe it's a more subtle soundtrack, but it's a more emotional soundtrack for me. We don't have to have all of these themes like the Imperial March and all of these big moments, but there are these songs like in I Can Fly Anything, and these moments in it. Or there's moments in Rey's theme, and then in some of the other songs where it triggers the visuals, in a way that all of John Williams' music does that for me, but this particular soundtrack has done that for me in a whole different way. I can't really explain it, but I think it's just as good as the other films. So I don't know. I guess people wanted more like booming themes or something, and whatever. I don't know.
Well, there was no Duel of the Fates. There was no Across the Stars or Battle of the Heroes. That's what I really was looking for, a big new anthem.
See, but we got Rey's theme.
It's a great theme.
Rey's theme is the anthem. Like, that song, it's amazing. It's so awesome. I mean, I've used that song as my alarm to wake up to in the morning.
Oh, don't get me wrong, it is a great theme. It's just not as powerful as something like Duel of the Fates or Across the Stars or Battle of the Heroes.
I mean, I can see that. I don't know. I don't know.
It's in between a love theme and your bombastic Imperial March, it's and the Duel of the Fates. It's like in between that. It's hopeful, but it's it's describing a single person's journey.
If anything, I loved Snoke's theme.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Sounded a lot like Voldemort's theme. But...
well, that's because he's Voldesnoke.
First name Gollum Voldesnoke.
Middle name Plagueis.
I want to hear Steve, because I see on what his favorite is, so I want to hear him talk about it.
Rey's vision is, to me, the meatiest part of this whole movie. There's just it is a flashback. It is an unveiling. It is the awakening within her. There's so much going on visually and audibly, and what they pulled off technically to get in this thing. I absolutely love her vision, from the Bespin we hear Vader breathing to scenes of where we're not familiar. Is it Jakku where it's raining? I don't think so. But there's the Knights of Ren, and she's standing there staring them down, and there's there's one moment where it's just a small, in the darkness, just a small hint of light that goes out, and we see that echoed later on as the sun goes out over Starkiller Base, but then the voices in there, Yoda's in there, as voiced by Frank Oz. You've got Luke in there from Empire. You've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, young Obi-Wan Kenobi, as voiced by Ewan McGregor, and you've got old Obi-Wan, old Ben, calling the name Rey. And what a technical achievement that was, just to edit the word afraid so they could get Rey out of there. It's just amazing what they did, and to pick that thing apart is just, that's what I've been doing so much with people in conversation who are willing to go down that road with me, is just picking this vision apart to figure out what everything means, because I'm still not 100% convinced that she's the daughter of Skywalker.
Neither am I.
But man, that vision could convince me. I go back and forth, and that vision's part of the reason I go back and forth.
I want to know why she's on Cloud City. There's a reason for that. Why did they incorporate her in Cloud City of all places?
Well, or was it her, or is it just she's getting things from the what the lightsaber has been through? I mean, that's it's very it's a vision, and as a person who is told stories using visions, nothing is ever what it seems in the vision. A lot of people are assuming that Kylo is an adult, or that what his age is. So everything, she's seeing things, but they're it's just like in the vision, Luke's vision in the tree cave. He sees Darth Vader. He thinks it's Darth Vader. We think it's Darth Vader. Then he lops the head off, and he sees himself. So everything's a trick. It's a surrogate. It's something that our mind is going to make. Like when we dream and we do a lot of dream analysis, we see things differently. Our mind creates different realities. So I'm still processing. We probably will still be processing that through 8, 9, what that vision really means.
Yeah. If she's following the path of the lightsaber, I would have loved to have seen more prequel shots then, especially the one where Anakin cuts down little younglings. That would have spoken volumes.
But is that the cries? We hear cries, and some of them's hers, but some of those voices, I believe, are the cries of that lightsaber did bad things too, which is very powerful, and giving it back to Luke at the end. But, that lightsaber did good and it did bad. So,
right. Well, I mean, and you guys brought up age. Rey is 19, Finn is 23, Poe is 32, and Kylo, it's not explicitly stated, but Pablo Hidalgo says one day on Twitter, he's older than Rey, but he's not as old as Poe, so he's in his 20s somewhere. So he is older, and Rey is the youngest.
How old is Unclear Plot?
Let me turn to
I've got to know this. We're not going any further until I know this.
Doctor Who villain, Unclear Plot. Yeah.
But Tricia, let's talk a little bit about yours, because I know that moment is a favorite for a lot of people, and it has some big like Empire Strikes Back tie-ins and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, my favorite moment was that's a moment if I talk about it, and I've talked about it at Fangirls Going Rogue, I've talked about it on my blog. The moment I wanted to see was the female Jedi character. I mean, she's not a Jedi yet, but Force user having a lightsaber and getting their call to destiny and taking it up. And so, we have this very powerful moment where the lightsaber falls into the snow. And as soon as that happened, when you're seeing it there, you're just going, okay, Empire Strikes Back, Empire Strikes Back, and then you see it start to shake, and who's calling to it. But my little fangirl heart was just going, please, 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 please. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to go to Rey. And when it happened, there were not in the screening, but when I went to see it the first time with the audience, there was just guys sitting next to me, and they were like, "Dooyah!" And they were screaming, and I couldn't scream because I was just kind of like shaking. But when that lightsaber flies into her hand, and it was just crazy. And then then we find out what the music is.
Yeah, I noticed that cue the first time I saw it. That was, and again, it just comes from growing up with Star Wars and knowing it inside and out. The minute that cue hit, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're playing the music from when Luke rode up on Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen.
Yeah, well, that was his turning point. That was Luke's turning point, where he became a man and like decided to go on the journey. And so the fact that plays when Rey takes the lightsaber, like, oh my gosh, the power to that moment and the music right there. And like you, Tricia, like you see the lightsaber, it's in no one's hand yet, but Rey is there, and my fangirl heart was also like, oh my gosh, is she gonna get it? Is she gonna get it? Is she gonna get it? And she got it! Yay! I was so excited.
And this might actually be a perfect moment to segue into our character discussion.
I think so.
Let's do it.
Sidious, Anakin, Luke and Leia, Qui-Gon Jinn, C.O. Bibble, Kylo Ren, Salacious Crumb, Bib Fortuna, Boba Fett, Amidala, Wicket, R2-D2, BB-8, I can barely keep it straight. It's a character discussion. It's the Fangirls on character. It's a character discussion.
And there we go. I guess there is no other character to talk about in the first episode. And it's just still crazy that Rey ended up the character that she was. I mean, they hid the ball on not showing her in that moment with the lightsaber in the marketing. And they still haven't shown it anywhere in the marketing. You have to go to the movie to see that moment. And so people, if you haven't gone to the movie to see this moment, then you should. If you're listening, I don't know why you're listening. You should have gone to the movie and then listen.
I will tell you this, Tricia. My friend Derek sent me a picture from the Disney store like the day after the movie was released, and they already had on the shelves a new version of the Rey. I guess it's like a 7 or 8 inch figure, and she is packaged with the lightsaber.
Nice.
Whoa! On the Disney store?
Mm-hmm.
How exciting!
So I was gonna interrupt everybody really quick here to just say what I've been saying since the beginning. Okay, for everybody that was like, "Oh, it's Finn because he has the lightsaber in the trailer," and I was sitting there going, "Yeah, I don't know if he's really got force powers. I don't know," and everybody was saying it was. It's Rey. It's Rey. Called it a long time ago.
I was right there with you, Teresa.
Boom.
I was right there with you, Teresa.
Alrighty then.
Okay.
I just needed to drive that in a little bit because I knew it in my gut.
Well, now if you look back at the D23 poster and just knowing the first images we saw Rey, she was looking sideways and the wind was blowing and that outfit didn't look as Jedi-ish. But I thought the Struzan poster really said Jedi to me in even the look and the way she was. And it was one of those things where I knew it was going to happen, but you're afraid it's not going to happen. So, just to have that moment and the look of it was just kind of incredible, and to see everybody rooting for her. But did anybody else to me, the whole fight scene felt looked very Empire Strikes Back. I don't know if anybody else got that vibe from it, but just the way it was lit and the way it happened.
Well, the lightsaber battle was definitely more original trilogy than like the crazy, lightsaber fights of the prequels. So yeah, but I can see what you mean, like the blue light. Is that what you mean? Kind of the stark quality to it.
And it's a lot of it's obscured. Empire Strikes Back, a lot of the fight was obscured, and in just the way the lightsabers are creating a lot of the light in this. It was in the dark setting. It didn't strike me until like the fourth viewing, because almost the whole lightsaber battle has been hard to absorb the first couple of times, where I was like, okay, I can't believe this is happening, and it's very emotional. And
yeah.
But the more times I watch it, the more times I see that obviously Vader is way outpacing Luke on Bespin, and in this, that she's not going to be able to match him, but we know that Kylo Ren's been weakened.
Injured.
Yeah, considerably. Although I have to say that Daisy Ridley, she talked about being prepared, and that J.J. Abrams didn't want her too prepared, and for this, and she was prepared with a staff, and initially fought somewhat like she was fighting with a staff instead of fighting with a lightsaber. So, you know, that was some of the interesting. My favorite thing for Rey as a character is that everything happens for her. She's like the anti-bullying message from the first moment we see her on screen and she's doing the thing she's doing, knows she's alone. And then BB-8 comes into the picture and she steps out there and challenges Tito. And she tells BB-8 that Tito doesn't, care about anybody and just takes what he wants. But he backs away from Rey immediately and lets the droid go, doesn't challenge her. Their whole existence is about scavenging. And Tito's like, okay, you can have it. That's fine. And all the way up to the scene, she doesn't back down from Han Solo even. She certainly doesn't back down from Finn, but I think he's more of a follower. But in the moment where Kylo is in there face to face with her and essentially, I think, awakens the Jedi in her by trying to push into her mind. The moment she pushes back is when he's bullying her. He's in a position of power and she tells him to get out of her head. And there's only two people that Kylo Ren backs away from in the movie. It's Rey and Han Solo. And the Han Solo is more about the fear of his father, but I thought it was a very powerful moment for her to say, get out of my head. But that's the whole message when you talk to people when they're in bullying situations, which is why I love Rey. And what she's doing as a character is she's creating that boundary where a person with more power, she can push them away. And so that to me was a very powerful message for a character to be that way. And even when she picks up the lightsaber, that moment when she picks up the lightsaber is about defending her friends. And he is a schoolyard bully in every way, down to the temper tantrums when he's slashing things around. But she says, I'm still going to stand up to you.
Well, I heard some people talking about how the lightsaber fight at the end, how they wish that it would have been more because they had seen Rey be more powerful against the thugs, Unclear thugs and stuff like that. Because she was very powerful. She was very confident in herself. She held her own, and she was definitely much more of a fighter in that scene than she was in the lightsaber scene. And not to say that she didn't hold her own, because she did, but there's it's a different Rey. The Rey on Jakku is a different Rey from the Rey that was on Starkiller Base that was trying to confront these new things that were happening to her. And one of the things that I had kind of mentioned to the people that were talking about this is that we get to see two sides of Rey, and we don't always get to see multiple sides of a character, but we get to see her confident side on Jakku, where she's from, where she's comfortable, and she knows what to expect. She knows what to deal with. She's been working with her staff for a long time. I mean, that's her element. And whereas where she's on Starkiller Base and she gets this lightsaber in her hand, she's afraid of the lightsaber. We already knew that. She didn't want to touch it again. She's afraid of the Force, but yet also interested in it. And so now she's confronted with having to use this lightsaber. It's a weapon she's never used before. And we get to see that sort of timid side, that non-confident side, but also knowing that she needs to protect herself and she needs to protect Finn, and that she doesn't want to, stand or get bullied by Kylo Ren. Like, she knows she wants to do something, but she's not 100% confident in herself. And so I was saying to these people, we can't see the all-out, drag-out, amazing, force-filled fight between her and Kylo Ren in Episode 7. That's going to come later, when suddenly she's now she's confident in, what she's learned about the Force and everything. And there's been some criticism about her closing her eyes, and saying oh, the Force, closing her eyes and kind of channeling the Force. But I think that moment is super powerful because he's not advancing her at this point. He wants to see what she's going to do. He's testing her in a way because he wants to try to turn her. And so he's testing her to see what she does. And she closes her eyes and she channels in the Force, and suddenly she's full of a new, like almost like second wind. Like now she's ready to say, you know what? I'm not going to take this from you. I may not know how to do it, but I'm sure as heck going to try. And sure, she starts to kind of go a little bit dark because she kind of starts going at him, and slashes his face up and everything. And she may have or may not have been saved by the earthquake that separated the two of them. But I just think that it's so much more powerful of a moment because we get to see a person that is not confident in themselves, but still willing to do what needs to be done than, seeing like Jakku Ray in that scene.
I want to lean into that a little bit and push back on one or two things real quickly. When she closes her eyes, it's a throwback to what Maz told her.
Right.
The castle, she said, close your eyes and feel the light. Like she's telling her, Maz is talking about feeling the light side of the Force. And so when Kylo says, I can teach you, I can show you the Force, it kind of dawns on her because she's holding him off. They're kind of locked up in that point. And she closes her eyes and finally allows the Force to flow through her. And that's, it's funny to me, the last words or some of the last words that Yoda spoke to Luke were, remember, a Jedi's strength flows from the Force. Like it's those simple teachings that Yoda wanted to make sure that Luke held on to. And in that moment, and that's what Obi-Wan tells Luke when he's training, you've got to let the Force flow through you. And I don't know that she was skirting toward the dark just because she was defending herself, and she was in a situation where she had to back him down, and it was kind of kill or be killed. I don't think she was out for vengeance. I don't think she was out. I don't think she was acting in anger or in fear. I think she was acting in, I've got to get this done, or none of us are getting out of here. I think it was defense. And so I don't know that she was skirting toward the dark at all in that moment. And I'm okay with that. And her life may have been saved by by the crevice that was created, but I think that her soul remained firmly intact through that whole encounter.
The one thing that the ground shifting apart, I mean, there's a lot of visual imagery that could say a lot of different things about those two characters being pulled apart, but it didn't allow her the chance to make a choice whether to kill him or not, because he says to her, you would like to kill me, right, when he has his mask on, and she says, yes, I would like to kill the monster. I think she calls him a monster with the mask who's pursuing me, but he's taken the mask off now, and so she has him down. And I believe she has him busted. She used her resourcefulness to figure out because we've seen her, she can figure things out. She's figured out that his lightsaber isn't the best. And she's figured out how to use the snow and the conditions to best that. And of all the lingering, that happens so quickly that it's almost, you don't even get to realize what happens. But she's drowning out his weapon, and then she cuts it in half, I think in half. But she used her brains to outthink him, but she doesn't get to decide whether she's going to kill the monster without the mask. She's now seen him slay someone who she admires. She admires the smuggler Han Solo, and Kylo even got into her head and said he's like the father you wish you had. Right. So there's a they don't give her that chance to make the decision, am I going to kill him or not? The ground takes that decision away from her, but maybe that's because that's episode 8 or 9. She has to make that decision. So, but she runs back to Finn immediately. But there's so many powerful moments in her journey that you could just talk about the beats of her hero's journey and how that unfolds. I think you could probably talk for hours on it.
So as far as like who Rey is, like I know a lot of people are speculating who she is, and Tricia, I know that's one of the things that kind of bothers you is that they didn't really reveal exactly who she is. I just kind of wanted to go around of who everybody thinks that she may be. So, Tricia, who do you think she is?
Who do I think she is? Well, there could be I'll tell you what I believe. There is nothing, and no matter what anybody says, there is nothing in this movie that eliminates the possibility of her being a Skywalker, Luke's child. There's nothing that eliminates her from the possibility of her being Han and Leia's. I know that a lot of people believe that certain things eliminate things. There's nothing to eliminate the people who believe it's a granddaughter of Kenobi, and there's nothing that eliminates it as just being a random person. So if you hear people say, well, this means that, no. I watched this movie from every perspective, and you can work your way around all of anything that happens. So that's what I believe. This movie doesn't eliminate.
But who do you think she is?
I still believe that she is the daughter of Han Solo and Princess Leia.
Okay, Sarah.
Huh. I don't really like to speculate, but I think it's some kind of Skywalker descendant, but it's not gonna be Luke's. Like it may be a relation to Luke somehow. But I don't know. I think there's going to be a twist that none of us have thought of.
Steve.
I don't know. I feel like Luke's daughter is way too easy. I feel like that's too easy of a thing, but sometimes the easiest way is the best way to go. My problem with her being related to any of these characters is, it needs to be understood then who was looking out for her on that planet, because for all intents and purposes, for everything we know about her right now, and even from what we saw of Little Rey in that vision, she basically got abandoned on Jakku. It wasn't like Luke being left in the care of Owen and Beru, or Leia being adopted by the Organas. It was abandonment. And that really paints a not the greatest picture for our heroes that we've come to know and love if she's related to them, in my view and opinion. So I don't know. I right now, if I had to guess, she's connected in a way that none of them realize, and I think that's going to be what's interesting to see.
Awesome, good job, everybody. I'll go ahead and say for me, I don't think she's related to anyone. I like the idea of her being no one, being an anonymous individual that is just very strong with the Force, and that the Force and Luke's lightsaber and everything were calling to her. I like that so much better. And there's a lot of people saying, well, she needs to be related because it's a generational story, and it's all about like continuing like the story of these families. But the one thing I have to say to that is, well, we already have a Skywalker solo. Kylo Ren is a Skywalker solo. Mm-hmm. So we already have one, so we don't necessarily need another. There are some things floating around from the Disney Infinity game that in the game, Kylo Ren calls her his cousin. So that's out there.
No, already proven, already discounted.
Oh, yeah?
Publicly. Yeah. No, that one's gone. So,
okay.
Yeah, he says curses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Someone's wishful thinking.
Yes.
So thank you for that. So for me, I would much prefer that she is just someone that anybody, and any little girl or any person can put themselves in their shoes, that you don't have to be from a specific bloodline. I just like that idea, but who do I obviously we don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to sort of wrap this up. I mean, we love Rey. We already know that. We all love Rey's theme, and I think we can all give this 2 thumbs up, big 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yay.
I mean, the most important thing about Rey is that no matter who she is, we fell in love with her because of what she did in this movie and not who she's related to.
Right.
And
exactly.
I believe that's the most important takeaway of this movie, is that she doesn't have to be somebody's kid for us to like the character. And in that part of it, I have come to terms with it and applaud that part of the decision making.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's awesome. So, Steve, where can people find you around the internet?
Where can they not find me, Teresa? The best place to go is geekoutpodcast.com, and that's where you'll find all the different shows, including the flagship show, The Gulliver's Geek Out Loud, and our show, Teresa, Disney Vault Talk, which has a sub-show under it, The Old Rebel Yell.
Yep.
Woohoo!
And Steve, thank you so much for hosting this live stream. Seriously, we appreciate it.
Thanks for letting me sit in with you guys. I had a blast. I always love
Awesome.
the wars.
Yeah, that was so great. It's fun to do a live show. And Richard, you can find with me on Skywalking Through Neverland at skywalkingthroughneverland.com and soon to be on retrozap.com at the first of the year.
Awesome. So as we roll out of this, as I said before at the beginning, this is where you can get all of the contact information for the new show and where you can find us. So head on over to our brand new, shiny, awesome, amazing website, fangirlsgoingrogue.com, to stay up to date on all our various events and podcasts and everything that we're doing. You can find us on Twitter. Fangirls Going Rogue is at FG Going Rogue. Tricia is at Fangirl Cantina. I am at Ice Cold Penguin. Sarah is at Jedi Tink. And Steve is at Steve Glosson.
Remember, our new email is contact@fangirlsgoingrogue.com. Facebook, Fangirls Going Rogue, and Tumblr. I've got so much Rey in there, fan art, Finn and Poe, who we didn't even get to talk about together. Fangirlsgoingrogue.tumblr.com.
And our Instagram is at FG Going Rogue. It's the same one. And then Sarah, why don't you tell everybody how to reach us by voicemail?
Absolutely. So voicemail, you can send us your voicemail at 33121-EWOKS. And also, you can head to iTunes and find us there at Fangirls Going Rogue, which is super exciting, and give us a review, because we need those reviews. Yay! And of course, if we don't appear on your podcast app, whatever you may be using, please send us an email, and we will remedy that right away. So until next time, everyone, da-da-da-da-da. Yum.
Yum.
Yum.